Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe. Today we're going to be taking a look at the newest of the Tenno reinforcements, the Syndicate primary belonging to Cephalon Cimaris, the Simulor. Now, the Simulor utilises balls of gravitational force as projectiles. These balls can be manipulated to produce different effects, from producing explosions to creating damaging vortexes. Now normally I'll launch into the stats of the weapon, however there are just so many mechanics to this weapon, I'll deal with those then and then talk about the actual stats. This really feels like a strange combo of Penta meets Torrid meets Castanas. The left click fires a singularity, otherwise known as a ball, and right click blows up this ball, with what seems to be a guaranteed electric proc each time. In addition to that, if you fire 5 balls close enough for them to merge, they will form a mini vortex which does damage over time, and then explodes after 8 seconds. It will also suck up loot and corpses of dead enemies, but not live enemies. Each time a ball merges with another, an explosion happens, dealing magnetic damage. Not only that, but if they merge into an already existing vortex, they do another explosion, and also reset that 8-second timer. The explosion radius seems to be about 2 or 3 meters, it's not huge, and cannot be increased because of the inability to use Firestorm. In addition to all of this, the flight distance of the ball seems to be around 12 meters, which is fairly short and once again cannot be increased. Now we've taken a quick look at the mechanics of the weapon, let's have a look at the supporting stats, and with a base damage of 50 pure magnetic damage on a single ball, ramping up to an explosion doing about 230 pure magnetic, with the maximum of 5 balls in the vortex, it's definitely not one of the most damaging weapons ever. Suffers from really a ton of damage reduction to pretty much everything except shields. In addition to that, 10% critical chance with a 2x multiplier really isn't vaguely close to being worth considering to mod for, and then 10% status as well pretty much also counts that out of a possible build completely. And this is where the disadvantages start, and boy, there are quite a few. Firstly, the range of 12 meters is really short and requires a longer range secondary to even really consider having this as a primary. The inability to use the range mods on this to extend the range is an oversight, and really would be nice if that could actually be used here. The explosion radius of about 2 or 3 meters is also ridiculously small, and since the vortexes do not currently pull into itself, the explosions are actually working against itself. At the stage where explosions are not killing anymore, the knockback is actually knocking enemies away from the vortex, to the extent where they're out of the explosion range completely, meaning that follow-up shots into that vortex are actually unlikely to do any damage at all. I suspect that this is, well, the not pulling into the vortex is a bug that needs to be fixed, and this might not become an issue anymore, but currently this really ruins the vortex mechanic for me. In addition to all of that, a reload of 3 seconds needs absolutely to be modded for, and an extremely slow fire rate of 2 rounds a second really needs modding for it not to feel really super sluggish. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Simulor. Now it comes with a D and a dash polarity as standard, however we're going to add 6 former. The first thing we're going to do is remove that D. We're going to make it into 4 Vs and 2 dashes. Obviously this dash is going to be here anyway. Now for this mod we're going to have a bunch of mods remaining the same between all 3 of our builds. Serration for damage, split chamber for multi-shot, heavy caliber. Since the accuracy on this is absolutely perfect, there is no accuracy loss from heavy caliber whatsoever, so there's no reason not to have that on here. Pry and fast hands, which takes the reload down to 1.9 seconds from a massive 3 seconds. And speed trigger, just to speed up the rate that we actually fire the balls. Now we're going to be modding pretty much for the heaviest units primarily. So for the Grineer, we're going to be going Hellfire Stormbringer for the radiation damage. And we've got Infected Clip as well for extra toxin damage against the flesh. For the Corpus, Stormbringer Cryo Rounds, which is going to combine with the base magnetic on this to make some absolutely insane magnetic damage. And we've also got Infected Clip against the fleshier Corpus units. And in the Void, Infected Clip Stormbringer for corrosive, and Hellfire, which is going to bring up the extra heat damage. And then if you're running corrosive projection, just switch out Stormbringer for cryo rounds, and then you've got the viral and heat damage. And this actually is a very good build for the corrosive projection build, because you've also got the magnetic on there, which is going to help you deal with the corrupted mowers just a little bit easier as well. So do I think it's worth the time, effort and resources in maxing it? And I think out of everyone's videos I've seen so far on YouTube, I'm going to be the only one to say that actually I don't think it's worth it. I found the entire weapon to be the most clunky, clumsy and downright frustrating thing I've ever think I've used in the game. The damage over time damage from the vortex is non-existent because the guys need to be pretty much inside of it before it actually does any damage. And without any pull effect on it, the only guys running through the vortex are the infested, which magnetic has severely reduced damage to. The damage itself on the weapon is actually not really that great, and fell off massively towards around 40 minutes in a Tower 1 survival, to the extent where it was no longer killing that efficiently. Level 50 heavy gunners are not high level by anybody's standards, and it was really struggling to even take those guys down, but to the extent where you would use almost a mag and a half to try and actually take them down at all. The balls themselves are a nightmare. They're almost impossible to get into the right position at close range, with them either going too high, nowhere near the enemy at all, and then the explosion radius is far too small and it can't be modded for, which really defeats the object of the weapon completely. And since at the higher levels where it no longer kills in one shot, it's knocking enemies out of the range of further explosions, which is absolutely working against itself. Now this might be a playstyle thing, it might not be, it might just me not enjoying this type of weapon. Especially since other YouTubers seem to actually like this weapon, but maybe I'm missing something with it that makes it absolutely fantastic. But I really do not get this weapon. I had the most miserable time maxing this and you can possibly imagine. And this is going to go back into my arsenal and will never see the light of day again. Personally, I wish I could throw this into a black hole. I always preach about individuality of weapons, and this does look interesting. The playstyle is interesting, but I just absolutely hated every minute of it. I'm not saying not to try it at all. Hey, maybe you'll try it and maybe you'll like it. I personally don't think it's worth the former, and certainly not the time it's needed to max it out. That said, there are a couple of instances where I think this could be theoretically used. Firstly, inside of an actual vortex when used with Vauban, so the damage over time actually does something and the explosion's not working against itself. Or on Mirage, but then to be fair, Mirage could make pretty much any weapon look godlike when modded properly. So it's got interesting mechanics, interesting design. The Simulor promised a lot, but at least in my eyes it absolutely missed the mark. And it goes down as one of the very few weapons that I personally don't think is worth maxing. At least until some fixes come in for various mechanics, such as pulling into the vortex. Now onto talking about the Void Trader. Barracuteer has returned to feed our need for stuff and remove ducats from our wallets. This time he's arrived with the Prisma Veritux Arcwing melee weapon, which is back again. It's not bad, it's pretty much worth picking up. A Prisma skin for the bows, and also primed pistol gambit, which provides 187% crit chance to pistols, which is absolutely insane, and I would recommend picking that up as an absolute must-have. I've had a whole stack of cores ready for a brand new Prime mod, which I've already maxed 5 minutes after it came out, and it has replaced my standard pistol gambit on every single crit secondary now. It makes weapons like the Lex Prime, the Act Magnus and the Axamati absolutely godlike. It's a fantastic mod, and it's really pushing the boundary between primary weapons and secondary weapons ever closer. To the extent where some secondary weapons are better than pretty much most of the primaries, it's absolutely insane. If you can only pick up one thing from this round though, make it the mod. It's absolutely going to be worth it. Just to let you know though, that content over the next couple of weeks might be a bit slow. There's a whole bunch of things going on in my personal life that is actually going to affect my actual time to make and render videos. But in that time, I'm going to be doing, I'm still going to be doing a couple of videos a week covering weapon releases in patches on Wednesdays. And I'm also going to be trying to farm a ton of keys ready, and I'm going to live stream the Hunt for Ash Prime when he finally comes out. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. I know my content has been a bit sporadic and all over the place the last week or so, and it's probably going to be that way for another couple of weeks. Just bear with me. Things will be back to normal as soon as possible. I've got an insane amount of thanks and respect for you guys as we hit the 8,000 subscriber mark. My heartfelt thanks goes out to every single one of you, especially how insanely quick we are growing right now. Thank you all so much. Please remember to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.